Yo, what up, street dogs? There, Kim. Alright, so this is just a quick video I want to make on just some personal thoughts on depression, anxiety, stuff like that. So first and foremost, I can only speak for my experiences. I'm not going to talk for you and not talk about your condition, but I'm just going to use this chance to, I guess, philosophize about myself, my mind, and stuff like that. So some theories. The first theory I had was, I wonder if, you know, for us humans, depression is a physiological thing, which means originating in the body. Because certainly, you know, from what I understand, it does seem that when people talk about like depression being a physiological thing, it's like quite literally you cannot move, you can't get out of bed, and you're not motivated. And the notion of motivation is interesting because to be motivated literally means to move. So if you don't have the energy or the power, the desire, or the force or the willpower to move, then certainly you're not motivated, right? And to be motivated literally means to walk. And so not having the energy or the willpower to walk or move, let's say that's the definition of depression, right? So certainly it must somehow originate in our bodies. Now, I think the modern way of thinking about depression is somehow that, you know, something in your brain is kind of defunct. Like imagine if your brain is running on Windows 95 and has all these bugs and stuff like that, that somehow it is your fault that you have a bug in your head, and then, you know, we try to fix the bug by, you know, doing medication, stuff like that, or, you know, whatever it may be. But I know for myself, in the times in the past where I've been really depressed, anxious, or melancholy, and this is also where I find it interesting, is that the notion of like quote-unquote depression is quite a modern one. What goes back a lot further in terms of history is studying melancholy. And melas, meaning dark or bad, cholia, I think it was the liver or something. So I think the ancient notion of melancholy was kind of this notion of black bile somehow being in your system. We now know that's not real, but I think with depression, it kind of manifests in everybody a little bit differently. And whenever a lot of us talk about depression, we all mean to say the same thing, but we all approach it a little bit differently, right? And so, some basic thoughts. So the first one is, I guess, supposedly the more stoic thought. So our homeboy Marcus Aurelius up here. So depression being, like, I think there's so many different types of things to unpack, right? So like there's kind of like depression, anxiety. So anxiety meaning like you're fearful of just like leaving the house or doing anything. So that's a form of anxiety, which I think could be partly overcome by stoic training, by mental training, like reading like Marcus Aurelius's Meditations or the Epistles of Seneca, Letters from a Stoic. Any of the Stoics, all the Stoics are good because that's about overcoming loss aversion, risk aversion, and stuff in life. So that's anxiety. And certainly if anxiety, you feel the heartbeat and the physiological symptoms, it must be physiological, meaning it starts from the body. And considering that our body is more ancient than the mind, then that means that perhaps anxiety is a physiological condition. And my personal thoughts on medication, like, once again, I can't speak for you, but at least for myself, the reason why I would never take medication, or I would never give medication to my dad or my mom or my future kids and stuff like that, is because my thought is, I mean, I think it works. I'm not doubtful that it doesn't work, but it's also kind of the reason I don't use a belt when I'm lifting weights or when I'm deadlifting, is that it could end up becoming a crutch in the long term. And it also depends on like how far you're thinking, right? Ends up becoming a crutch. And also there could be all these other hidden side consequences that we don't know of yet. But obviously this is all highly dependent. Like if you're, you know, for example, if I was like highly like suicidal or something like that, yeah, then maybe taking a bunch of medicines might be good for me. But I still think that when it comes to you know, depression, another thought I had was, just for myself, like thinking about, like, sometimes I could get just like really irrationally like angry, and then this is another thing I find interesting about anger. If I could be angry or I could be really, really sad and depressed, I'd actually choose anger, because at least with anger, I'm motivated to move. So with anger, I want to go out, I want to punch a wall, punch concrete walls, I want to lift weights, I want to run around. And actually doing that stuff does make me feel better. Now, it doesn't necessarily cure the cause of my anger, which is obviously a lot more complex. But I'm also starting to think that, like, often the reasons why I feel angry is that I feel somebody else is culpable for the way I think and I feel and my condition, and you kind of want some sort of revenge. So even Homer calls revenge sweeter than honey, right? So I think there's actually something in our human DNA that is kind of tied into our sense of justice, is that we like revenge, right? Is that, you know, someone kills your brother, you want to kill their brother, and then, you know, you want to call it, you know, you want to even that out. So certainly there is desire of revenge in our systems, and I think oftentimes when you get angry or, you know, stuff like that, is that you think that some sort of injustice has been done onto you and you want to take it out on others. But sometimes when there's no one else to actually take it out on, we ended up taking it on ourselves, and then therefore we become the victims of our own abuse, which is obviously not a good thing. And so generally what I advocate for is, when it comes to depression, anxiety, you know, anger, to just kind of be very specific, because everyone manifests it in a different way. So even truth be told, whenever I feel really angry and stuff like that, maybe I don't want to call it depression because there's too many different people with different symptoms. Maybe, like, I prefer maybe the notion of like melancholy, because to just feel very melancholy, just to feel very, very sad. And, you know, it's kind of okay to feel sad. Like, even for us guys, you know, we're generally taught that, you know, we shouldn't feel sad and bad and stuff like that. But my whole gist is, perhaps it's better to allow yourself to feel sad when the occasion is, because, like, even Achilles, when his best friend Patroclus is killed, right? He's crying and weeping for like ever. Same thing with Odysseus, when you know, he goes to the shore and he cries every single day for 40 days and stuff like that. And so for a man, or for anybody, to cry is okay, you know, it's okay, it's natural for us to cry. And even the greatest heroes in history have cried. And certainly if we think about the ancients, them talking about melancholy, right? I think, once again, because the word depression is so modern, we're not really gonna get down to it maybe for another like 300 years or so. So I would just personally suggest, and this is just like what I do for myself, is I try to overcome my fear, my anxiety, my feelings of guilt. What's helped me studying Stoic philosophy, not calling it depression, but calling it more melancholy or anger. Rereading some of the ancient epics like the Iliad, the Odyssey, Epic of Gilgamesh, and look at the real human emotions that these heroes had. So if they had those emotions all the way back then, like 5,000 years ago or 2,000, 10,000 years ago, whatever it is, and we still feel them now, certainly they're kind of like innate human emotions, which are totally okay. And maybe it's also part of it is to not deny our human emotions, is that there's a hidden intelligence why we have emotions and why we feel a certain way, and we should continue to accept them and then kind of stare it in the face and just like looking at your emotions like, what is this emotion trying to tell me? And knowing that there's some sort of hidden intelligence to our emotions and to our melancholy. But generally speaking, also knowing that, you know, studying philosophy is useful, but also training your body is useful. So I know the more I train my body, the less depressed, anxious, fearful, risk-averse I am, the less melancholy I am. And also, when in doubt, sometimes it's good to just go on a walk. So this won't solve your life problems, but it certainly helped me.